Hi guys! So we watched 3 different counseling sessions. We watched the brainstorming session, the homesick session, and the dancing or helping session. And we had a few questions from our professor, and I'm going to answer those questions. The first one is, are the sessions you watch similar to what you imagine a counseling session to be? Why or why not? This is what I would think talk therapy would be like. So you would have yourself and a counselor in a room or a setting by yourselves, somewhere quiet where it can be confidential and you can talk back and forth. So it is what I thought it would be in regards to the session and what everyone's saying. And then ask, from your reading in chapter 8, what skills and counselor characteristics did you notice? I noticed that all 3 of the counselors used open questions, reflection with meaning and feeling questions, and also summary questions. So a few examples of those questions were, I hear that you're feeling somewhat guilty. Talk to me more about that. Tell me about your past experiences. You say you are aware of the feelings, but you're not able to verbalize them. I also noticed that the counselors all seemed to have positive demeanor and willingness to be open to what the client was saying and not saying. So I felt like the counselors were accepting and understanding. I also saw a lot of supportive and gentle in nature when they were asking questions. And then the third question was, what differences and similarities did the note between the 3 counselors? And in the brainstorming session, I noticed this may have been towards the end of the session, and where the counselor was summarizing the goals that the client had kind of already stated that he wanted to do. He was just kind of putting them more in like here's your first, here's your second, here's your third. And I felt like they were at a good place in their counseling session. In the homesick session, I felt like the counselor was using a lot of encourager words like yeah and And this counselor also led a lot with tell me more about that, which I think may relate to her youth as a counselor. Maybe not being able to use those reflection or meaning questions as regularly. She just said, tell me more about that. So it just made me feel like she wasn't quite sure what questions to ask. And then in the dancing or helping session, I noticed that the counselor was having to ask maybe some of the same questions and understand in different ways to open up the client a little bit more. So I noticed that. All the sessions seemed non-directive and client-led, while the counselor attempts to summarize the point and point out things they're hearing. So I feel like that is more of the Rogerian type of counseling, where the principles are congruence, empathy, and unconditional positive regard, which I thought all 3 of those counselors had. And then the last part is, what questions do you have about counseling session and how skills are used? To me, when the counselors were asking the questions, I noticed they were different types of questions, and they were reflective, and they were summarizing, and maybe they were open or they were closed questions. But my question is, how do you know what specific technique is being used when you're asking questions? So how do you make sure that you're using a specific counseling technique when you're asking questions of the client? All right, have a great night.